Covered. Covered. Covered.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin in just 60 seconds from now. In the interim, may I kindly request you to share the link with your family and friends. This talk will particularly help all college and high school students, along with their parents, since it will expose you to career opportunities that you may not normally know of. This could be a day when you make a fresh beginning for the rest of your life. So get all your friends, your relatives, and gain from this very informative session. We will begin in just 30 seconds from now. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 5th Virtual Knowledge Worth Having series organized by the Catholic Gymkhana Limited. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we come to you live using 2 platforms of communication. Our very own dedicated Catholic Gymkhana YouTube channel and the Zoom. At our control room this morning are 2 specialist resources, Aubrey Chatelier and Managing Committee member Ian Pereira, who behind the scene will manage all technical aspects to ensure that we have a smooth transition. Nevertheless, technology being what it is, can sometimes be unpredictable. If at any time we lose connectivity, I mean the internet connectivity, please continue to hold on and do not switch off your sets. The speaker losing connectivity will be back with you soon. So please hold on in case of any break in the middle. Let me take you through what you can expect over the next 100 minutes. We will begin this morning with the introduction of the speaker by none other than the President himself. I mean the President of the Catholic Gymkhana, of course. And that's going to be followed by a discussion with our speaker. Thereafter, we are happy to take question and answers from the viewers. And finally, we will end with a vote of thanks to our speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your last opportunity to invite your friends and families for this useful session. For those of you who are interested in asking questions, please post your questions on the YouTube chat that's available to you. Our control room will collate all of these questions and pass it on to me at my control room out here, and these will be answered live by Roger at the very end. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get going. I now call upon our very committed President, Mr. Vernon Miranda, to introduce our speaker for this morning. But before I do that, and before I hand over to Vernon, let me start by congratulating Vernon for being elected unopposed for yet another term. Congratulations to you, Vernon. With that, I'd like to hand over to our President, Vernon Miranda, to introduce our speaker for this morning. Over to you, Vernon.
Thank you, Sanju, for your kind words.
Thank you for requesting me to introduce our distinguished speaker for today's session of the Knowledge Worth Having seminar. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Managing Committee of the Catholic Gymkhana, it is my pleasure to extend a warm welcome and greetings to you. I am delighted to welcome an illustrious member of the Catholic Gymkhana and the community, Mr. Roger C.B. Pereira. Thank you, Roger, for accepting our invitation, for sharing some inspiring thoughts with our youth and members, which will guide them on career opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a well-known advertising, communications, and theater personality, the legendary guru, Mr. Roger Pereira. What would I be able to add over and above what our audience already knows about Roger? I therefore propose to pose some questions to Roger and request him to give us an insight about himself. Hey, Roger, you hail from a very well-known traditional family of Bandra. Your brother, Father Jude Pereira, was one of our popular parish priests at St. Stephen's in my 6 decades at Kambala Hill. Having been born and bred in Bandra, Roger, can you tell us about your growing years and schooling in Bandra? Roger?
Thank you, Vernon, and thank you for inviting me. Yes, I am the proverbial Bandra boy. And although I moved out of Bandra in 1967, I still think of myself as a Bandra boy. Bandra was a very different place altogether at that time, very, very different. It was one huge family. Everybody knew everybody, you know. And you couldn't walk the street without saying, good morning, uncle, good evening, uncle, good morning, auntie, good evening, auntie. Everybody was uncle or auntie. In fact, there was a joke, you know. They said if you bowed your head and even said up under your breath, you damn bloody fool, they'd still say, good morning, son, you know. But fortunately, none of us had the guts to say that. And I think it was Francis Chicken Dias, whom later on went to become General Francis Dias, who stopped us in our tracks. But there was this surge, you know, of culture in our time when I grew up. The zonals were started in 53. And there was this new awareness for culture, for arts, for singing, for elocution, for music, for theater. And as a result, the zonals would be held in August, last week of August, first week of September. But in the month of May, we'd have plays, and boys and girls from different schools and different areas would get together and do these plays, which were usually staged either by Dr. R.T. Pereira or Muriel Pereira. Muriel later on became Carvalho. And it got us in this whole new awakening. And these plays were staged either at the St. Andrew's School Hall, there was no auditorium at that time, or at St. Stanislaus School Hall. Why, even in the city, there were no real auditorium. Plays were held either at St. Xavier's College Hall, or the Jai Hind College Hall, or the Casey College Hall. That was it. Much later, I think it was in the 50s or early 60s that the Bharati Vidya Bhavan Theatre came up. Vernon? We'd go to my college days. Yeah, So after school, I went to St. Xavier's College, and those were the best 4 years of my life. Admittedly so, you know. Uh, I was in the NCCA wing, and in the NCCA wing, in the third and fourth year, you got 90 free hours of flying. Can you imagine 90 free hours of flying? And so at the age of 17 and a half, I got my flying license. Can you imagine? And your driving license you get only at 18. I could have got it at 17, but it was not permitted at that time. I still remember Dr. Brian Pinto of Santa Cruz joking publicly that I got my flying license before I learned to drive a car. But but college was fantastic. The best 4 years, as I said. You know, I started participating in radio plays, courtesy Adi Marsban, and I also started writing and speaking commentaries for Films Division. And I got bit roles on the Bombay stage thanks to Alkazi and Alec Padamsi. It was a full day. I would leave home in Denver at 5:30 every morning. 3 times a week, it was for the NCC Ewing parades. And the other 3 times was to get to the flying club before 7 a.m. in the morning so that I'd get the first chance to take an aircraft. It was at Xavier's also that I met my best friend for many years, Bubbles Padamsi. In fact, during my college days, he was also my mentor to a great extent. And I would leave at 5:30 in the morning, get home only at 10:30 or 11 at night. The important thing is that we were able to stage our own plays, both at Xavier's as well as for the zonals. And the best lesson of all was that we had to learn to fund our own plays. And that was a big lesson that taught us. Vernon?
Thank you, Roger. Those were the days, my friend. We thought they'd never end. And so you moved on to college, which I'm sure would have been fun-filled years. Can you tell us something about your college days, Roger, and where you developed your creative and leadership skills?
I don't know about creative or leadership skills, but Xavier's was a great, great grooming ground. And I was 19 when I graduated from St. Xavier's, and right through my college days, I was focused on joining the Air Force. I just had one focus plan: join the Air Force, and unfortunately, when I graduated, I couldn't join the Air Force for personal reasons. And I was campus recruited by a large FMCG company. There were no Bajaj or IMs at that time or XLRIs. So companies came and campus recruited us. So I got campus recruited by a large multinational FMCG company and a large oil company. But for both, since I was 19 and their minimum age was 21, I was underage, and I was told to come back after 2 years. And I was frustrated. What am I going to do? I had no plan B. And I thought someone, Alkazi suggested I take up advertising, but that was not working, as I'll explain a little later on. And so I started knocking at doors. This campus recruitment gave me an idea of being executive trainee. So I tried, but I got rejections left, right, and center for 2 whole years. I had to suspend my flying. I couldn't afford it. And but I continued theater. We won for Government Law College, we won the Intercollegiate Youth Festival. And that's when I got to know a lot of college professors from other colleges, like Professor Verne from National College and Professor Bhapat from National College, Professor Banerjee from Elphinstone College, a whole lot of them. And then we went on to win the Inter-University Youth Festival. And I became the darling of Professor Tope of the Government Law College. But I kept getting a lot of free advice, typical Bandra advice. You know, why don't you join Air India? Why don't you join BOAC, as it was called then? Why don't you join the customs? And I didn't want to hurt them, but you know, that was not what I wanted to be. I thought of myself as an executive trainee. So I kept soldiering on. And then I dabbled with the Bombay University politics for a while. I won a seat there. But then I started getting dragged into the left side, left-wing guys and the right-wing guys. And so I decided to stay away from that. And finally, I landed my first job in advertising at JWT of all places. And I said to myself, forget this LLB, forget this MA. Let's focus. This is something I've always wanted to do. I think now that I've got to know about it. And it's through advertising that I got to know the gentleman whose photograph is behind me and who became my mentor for the rest of my life. And I'm sure he's still guiding me. Vernon?
Yes, Roger. Our years at St. Xavier's College are memories we all treasure. Now here comes the time in a man's life when any young man or lady has to make one of two critical choices in his life. The first being his career, and the second being his partner in life. So, Roger, could you please dwell on the choice of your career and what led you to the decision leading to a successful career? Roger?
Okay. Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I finally got a break in advertising, and I guess you want me to talk about what happened in Rome in 1967, right? People tend to ask me about that, so I might as well complete that story. And yeah, it was to me a pure accident. And I guess they say marriages are often made in heaven, but I guess in this case, it was meant to be. I won a global advertising award to be in London in 1967. And the chairman of the awards committee was Lord Leverhulme. And there's this FMCG company that bore his family name because his family had a major stake in that company. And he needed to shift the schedule, but I couldn't adjust because I was getting married and I was going to be on my honeymoon. So he very casually said, well, you come and have your honeymoon in London. London was a swinging city at that time, and everybody wanted to go to London. I didn't have the heart to tell him that, we had these horrible foreign exchange, horrible crippling foreign exchange restrictions. Wives could not accompany husbands on their trip, etc. So what do? I can't not go there to receive the award. And one of my colleagues at Shilpi, Ravi Gupta, came up with a very simple but brilliant idea. He says, why don't you go as singles and you get married the first stopover. The first stopover was Rome. And that's how we got married in St. Peter's. And in 1967, it was only the 82nd marriage since St. Peter was built. And, or rather, I should say St. Peter was really crafted and created because it's a masterpiece. Thank you, Vernon.
Yes, Roger. I recollect reading an article some years back on how you and Flavia had your nuptials at the Vatican. I'm sure the audience was delighted to know more about that happy moment in your life. Wow, Roger, I'm sure celebrating one's nuptials at the Vatican would be any young couple's dream. Now, one last question, Roger.
Yeah.
You have received wide recognition and awards during your illustrious career. Can you tell us about some of the highlights of your career and achievements?
You're making me blush now, Vernon. Well, there were no Cannes Awards in those years, but there were Clio's. There were the New York Festival Awards. There was the Max Lewis Trophy. There was the Banff Television Award. There was the UN Award. And we were not the first to win a Clio. Lintez won it the previous year. But for the rest, yes. But I can't take credit for any one of them. all awards are the result of teamwork. A whole team works on them on every little aspect. So, and it's a culmination of teamwork. So I have to share the awards with all my team members at each point in time. But that was on the awards front. But at the Global Summit in New Delhi, when we were toasted by the presidents and prime ministers who had assembled there, the conclusion of the curtain raiser, that was really fulfilling, as well as at the Dance Television Awards, as well as at the Hollywood Academy of Arts and Sciences, as well as at the UN General Assembly when I got the UN award. Each one of these. Another aspect I must mention is that I used to have a complex of not having a foreign education like you, Varun. And Gira Sarvai would always smile when I said, look, I've not been abroad, and so please don't ask me that. And so she got my friend Bapu Delalekar to get me to attend a communication workshop at the University of Chicago. And that worked, and from that, I started getting invitations to be a visiting lecturer at Northwestern, at Hawaii, at Chapel Hill, at Johns Hopkins, and a whole lot. But more important, it helped me get my colleagues at Shilpi a training. Each year, I would send one of my colleagues, and they would get, trained at Doyle Dane Bernbach in New York, which was the hottest advertising agency at that time. But Vernon, the best award of all was being invited by this gentleman behind me for coffee. And that was, I think, the most satisfying of all. Thank you, Varun.
Stupendous achievements, Roger. You've just given us a glimpse in a few minutes. This, I know, is an extensive topic on which you could perhaps write your memoirs. What a success story. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard it all from Roger, expressed with simplicity and humility. Friends, it is my pleasure to present to you Mr. Roger Pereira. Thank you, and over to you, Roger, and our host, Sanju Fernandez. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vernon. I must admit that was a well-deserved glowing tribute to our speaker, Mr. Roger Pereira. We now move over to Roger. First of all, thank you, Roger, for agreeing to talk to our members and guests. I must also, in fact, begin off by thanking you for arranging those various videos from subject matter experts who will share their view on their show today. In a way, this is going to be a show which will be a little different because we don't just have one speaker. It's one show, we have one speaker, but you've got so many different views that would be coming in right through as we go through the session. So thank you for arranging all those wonderful videos that I'm aware of, Roger. Let me start off by breaking the ice straight away. Roger, you did mention that you want to entitle this program as Take Charge, My Friend. Now, I know the meaning of take charge, of course. Would you like to share deeper insights about what really led to calling this entire program Take Charge? Take charge of what and when and where and why? Would you want to share all of that with our viewers? I'm sure that could be a good way to open up the session, Roger.
Sure. Thank you so much, Sanju. Actually, I have to be very grateful not only to the participants of each video, but also to Father Nigel and his team. They have very sweetly not only just recorded it, but preserved it for me and then make it available as and when we require it. Let me begin to clarify this with a video, which is very typical of a college scenario. This is at St. Xavier's College, but it could be a scenario that happens at any college. Let's have a look at this video.
What would it be? I'm hoping it's football.
Acting, writing.
literature, stuff like that.
Someone successful in life.
I'm really confused. I have no idea.
An English teacher.
Probably a web developer or database manager.
Basically, things it change every week.
Actually, I have completely no idea.
Right now, I'm going to follow what all my friends are doing.
Probably studying.
I haven't yet made the decision. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yes, that would be very good.
I think it's not a bad idea.
Definitely. Oh yeah, that would be brilliant.
So true. If only each one of us could have a mentor. Yes, Sanju.
So, Roger, if I've understood this correctly, Take Charge is all about mentorship, if I've understood this correctly. You know, the word mentorship today has gained so much of popularity, particularly with Mr. MS Dhoni, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, the former Indian captain, now being appointed as a mentor to the Indian cricket team for the T20 World Cup, in fact. So have I got this right? Is Take Charge all about mentorship? Roger, would you like to share your thoughts there, please?
Absolutely. In fact, he's now called Mentor Singh Dhoni.
Right, absolutely.
Instead
right.
of just Mahendra Singh Dhoni.
Very
But
true.
it
In fact,
is so
even
important.
as a captain, he
That's
did play
right.
that role. Yeah. Carry on, Roger.
Absolutely. Mentorship is so important, and it's not a new concept, but it has taken currency much more recently because we have begun to realize the importance of mentorship. We run two programs in Take Charge. One is a general mentorship program for all students, and the other one is something that I'll talk about later. Luis Miranda, my associate in Take Charge, explains the mentorship program for students in general very nicely through this video. Let's have a look at Luis Miranda video.
Take Charge, a mentoring program started by the St. Joseph's Educational and Technical Training Trust. We started this many years ago in partnership with Cardinal Ozzy, and this was a way to help the youth in Mumbai, the Catholic youth in Mumbai, aspire to do more than they currently aspire to. So what do? Over a period of 21 months today, we pair a young kid between the age of 16 and 25 with an adult. And the aim of it is really to help them aspire to do more than they currently aspire to do. We work on 4 areas. The first is helping them develop a relationship of trust with an adult they have no connection with. So all the adults that you really are connected with when you're a young person is either your parents, your friends of your parents, relatives, teachers, or your bosses at work. And here's somebody who you have no connection with, and you're building up a relationship of trust. And how do you open up over here? So that's one. The second is making them understand the importance of excellence in whatever they want to do. You see kids who say that, I like to spend my time watching television. Okay, now how's that going to make you a living? How's that going to change you? How's that going to make you a better person? And that's something what we try to do. It doesn't have to be excellence in studies only. You could be a good sports person, you could be a good musician, but whatever you do, try to excel at that. The third is helping them with their personality development. Could be speaking in public, confidence, networking, etc. And the fourth is career guidance, helping them figure out what they should be doing in life. And we put that really as fourth because a lot of people think that mentoring is about getting a job. And we're saying it is, but it's not the critical part. It's about you developing as a person to be able to get to that stage. A bunch of us Catholics got together, well, maybe now it's over a decade ago, to talk about this with the Cardinal, and it took some time to get started. And we're now running our 4th cohort of people, and it's we now have 150 kids who are being mentored by 150 adults. And we, besides the mentoring sessions, also have workshops where we discuss issues like understanding finance better, understanding yourself, how to network, how to build up your profile, how to write a resume, how to speak in public, and things like that. So would love to see how you can get involved in Take Charge, either as a funder for it, because it's all sort of self-funded by the community, as well as sort of, helping us with any strategic ideas of being a mentor. Thank you for your time, because after all, what we're trying to do with our kids is helping them to, as this t-shirt says, dream the impossible dream. Have a great day.
Lewis explains it very well indeed, really very well. The fact is, we need mentors right through life. I still need a mentor, I'm sure, and I've had a mentor. I've had different mentors at different stages of our lives. Let me explain this a little more, because the mentorship is the key factor of today's session, really. The understanding, appreciating, and accepting that we do need mentors at different stages of our lives. We often mix up mentors with a coach, the concept of a coach. A coach is very much like a sports coach, a football coach, a badminton coach, a table tennis coach. It goes even one step further into elocution coach, for example, But that's one track. They focus on coaching you for that particular thing, Then there are role models. Role models are different from mentors. Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was a role model for me, and he was a visionary, and which is why he was a role model, because he dreamt satellite television. Today, thanks to him, we have satellite television today in our country, and we take it for granted. We don't even think who Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was. Similarly, Dr. Varghese Kurian, he was another mentor for me. He was another visionary. He converted a grossly deficient milk state into the world's largest producer of milk. And because of his vision, he got no money from the government. He had to do everything on his own. And you can imagine, we don't have the huge dairies like they have in the US, New Zealand, Australia, and in Europe. Rows and rows of cows, and here the average person has 1 or 2 buffaloes, and buffaloes produce much less milk than cows. But I digress. Let me move on. So those are role models. The Cardinal is a role model for me, for his simplicity, his sincerity, his Christ-like approach to everyday problems, So these are role models, but mentors are different. Mentors are closer to like gurus, we use the word guru. Vernon described me as guru. Thank you, Vernon. But, for example, a lot of my Maharashtrian mentees ring me up every year on Guru Purnima and thank me for my blessings. I mean, who am I to give blessings? But it comes from above and I just transmit it. But Guru does, to some extent, clarify that, And so the real mentorship process really came to being in India in Tata Steel, when they were the most unprofitable steel company in the world. And Mr. J.J. Irani created this mentorship program for their surplus staff. And they mentored all those people who had to leave the company into what they could do with their early retirement benefits, etc., and start a whole new life. Those people got a second life, a second career, and Tata Steel became the most valuable and most profitable steel company in the world. That is when the concept of mentorship really became appreciated. Sanju?
Thank you, Roger. I must admit that video that you arranged from Luis Miranda so very aptly describes mentorship. Thank you so much. In fact, it was good to see Luis Miranda up on the screen after such a long time. Ex-HSBC like me. Lovely to see him there. Roger, tell me, your first love was theater, all right? And I know that for a fact. Now, you can be a good actor or a not so good actor as well. But does mentorship have a role to play even in a career like theater? Or is mentorship very restricted only to the professional life? Your words of wisdom on that, please.
Yeah, well, I was lucky. I had a mentor in theater. In fact, I had quite a few mentors. I remember it was at one of the St. Andrews zones. I keep referring to St. Andrew's Zonals. I owe them a lot, you know. I owe a lot of my various facets of my career, if I have those facets, to at one of those, at the end of one of the zonals, Mr. Ibrahim Al-Qazi, who was the founder of the National School of Drama, he came up to me and he said that Prithviraj Kapoor had commissioned him to train his son, Shashi Kapoor, the great Shashi Kapoor. And would I be interested in joining him, you know, because you can't just train a person in acting alone. And he would charge me just a token fee of 10 rupees a month because it was being paid for by Prithviraj Kapoor. And so I jumped at it. And in fact, took a couple of my Bandra friends also along, you know, and we came. And gradually, so this was a coaching exam situation, really. But gradually, my closeness with Al-Qazi, who was a brilliant human being, converted him into being my mentor too, because he then realized through the years that, you know, I was quite frustrated not having been able to join the Air Force. And he was thinking, what are you going to do? And I said, I really don't know. I said, I have no plan B. And I don't know if I used the word plan B because I don't think the concept of plan B existed at those times. But whatever, because you'll understand. You know?
That's right.
And Al-Qazi at that time was the creative director of Shilpi Advertising. Can you believe it? The same agency I joined many years later.
Wow.
Yeah. So he said, Roger, I think you'll make it in advertising from the way I've seen you and been interacting with you. I said, love to. And so he took me for an interview to Shilpi. And as I mentioned, Al-Qazi was the creative director, Nissim Ezekiel, the great writer, was the general manager, etc. But guess what? I flunked. I was not accepted, you know. So, and as I mentioned, I couldn't join the Air Force. And time, to be quite honest, Sanju, Air Force and civil service salaries were not that high, you know. And as Dr. Kurian used to often tease me, he said, you city slickers will never do things for the country. You know, you look at what is the bottom line, etc. But things have changed substantially today. And today the salaries are very, very competitive, you know. The pay scales compete very, very successfully with the commercial jobs that are available. And probably if a person like you and I could get a pension of $1 lakh plus a month on retirement. You can imagine we don't even get pensions from the private sector. We have to keep working at it, you know.
Right,
and there they get a pension, and plus some of them can take a job, etc. Over to you, Sanjay.
That's interesting, Roger. Interesting to know that even in a profession like theater, one could benefit by having a mentor. What about advertising, Roger? Would you be able to spell out some thoughts? Who really ushered you into advertising? How did advertising come about? Do you really require a mentor, even if you want to get into a profession like advertising? I'm sure if one requires it for theater, I would tend or be inclined to believe that you require it for advertising. Share some of your thoughts on mentorship when it comes to advertising, Roger.
Yeah, sure. As I told you that, as I mentioned earlier, Al-Qazi suggested I join advertising, but I flunked, you know. Now, at that time, there were Indian advertising agencies and multinational advertising agencies. I didn't even look at the multinational advertising agencies because at that time, they were looking only at for those who had foreign education, and I didn't have. You know, I had a one-track mind of joining the Air Force. I was qualified to fly, but not in advertising. So I looked at the Indian advertising agencies, and I kept getting a rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection, you know. And then one fine day, I was, this went on, mind you, for 1.5 years. I was frustrated. But the important thing, I went on, I persisted, you know. I kept giving the free advice from my Bandra aunties and uncles, as I mentioned earlier. And then one fine day at a Churchgate haircutting saloon, it used to be called Coiffure, if I remember correctly. There was this quiet gentleman sitting down quietly getting a haircut, and he waved out to me. And I said, oh, wow. His name is Noel Godin. And Noel would have been about 24 or 26. I was 20. Noel's about 4 or 6 years older than I. I didn't know at that time. I happened to meet Noel because I was doing a bit role with Alec and Noel in a theater group production called Long Day's Journey into Night. And that's how I got to know Noel. And Noel asked me, he says, what are you planning to do? And how are things going? So I said, well, at the moment, I'm only collecting rejection letters. I said,
Right.
And I used to joke with myself, which company writes the best rejection letter? In other words, it not only tells you you're no good, but it also gives you hope for the next
Absolutely.
appointment that you apply for. So, and he burst out laughing. He said, "What have you been applied for?" And I said, "Look, I thought I'd be a cop." I didn't know Noel was a copy chief, And he says, "Oh," so he smiled and he smirked. He said, "What happened?" I said, I keep failing. So he says, "What, the copy test?" So I said, "Yes." So he said, And Noel had this very typical character saying, And he said, "Okay, this was a Saturday, mind you." He says, "Why don't you come on Monday?" So I said, "Where?" He said, "JWT." I said, "What?" I didn't know Noel at 24 or 26 was the first Indian copy chief of the biggest advertising agency, JWT.
I see.
He was also the first Indian to be the copy chief, And he very casually tells me, yeah, you come and ask for me. And then I looked at it, he's one of us, he can't be that big a guy, kind of thing. And so this was a Saturday. So Monday I went across and to JWT, it was at Lakshmi Building on Firozshah Mehta Road. And I went there for a test. Now, this is where a real mentor comes in, Sanju, and this is why I'm telling this part of the story. He realized that I was flunking tests. Those were writing tests. And he realized at that moment that I was no writer. And he told me that later on. He says, writing, anybody can be taught to write. Writing is a skill, it's not a talent. Creativity is a talent. So what he did is he created a test to check and test my creativity or creative capacity.
Okay.
And, and boy, did I was able to swing that, Immediately he offered me a job and I started work the very next day. This was 1st December, 1960. I started on 2nd December and I have never, ever looked back after that, I have, thanks to Noel, taking that one step, and he really mentored me. And after that, even for the next year and a half, I think at JWT, he mentored me into becoming a really creative copywriter. And it's there are two things that happened to me at JWT. I also met this gentleman who guides me from above, behind me, and that's something I always treasure. Over to you, son.
Interesting, Roger. Interesting how mentors can have such an impact on individuals, even like you, who have been very successful in the advertising world. Tell me, Roger, I know that PR, public relations, came to you much later in your life, all right? By then, you had achieved a lot. You had achieved a lot of success. You had grown professionally. You had grown personally. But did you still require a mentor even that late in life? Even when you got into PR?
It's an interesting story. Again, it's another story. I think I love telling stories. Actually, it came to me very early in life. The year was 1965, and India was dragged into the war, Indo-Pakistan War of 1965. In 64, in 67, I mentioned I'd got my second World Advertising Scholarship Award. In 64, I got the first one to go to New York. And in those years, winning recognition outside India was a very rare thing. So when you won something like that, you were like a hero, So when this war happened, two very senior advertising people came to our agency, Shilpi. And one was Razmi Ahmad, who was the chief of Lintaz at that time. And the other was Prem Narayan, Inder Narayan, who was the Advertising Agencies Association president. And both of them came and met my boss, Achut Barve, and said, look, we need to borrow Roger. for the war effort, to help the country fight the war effort. And so Atul said, if he wants, yeah, sure, by all means. So then they told him, look, it might take some time. So he said, what? So that means he'll have to go to Delhi. So anyway, to cut a long story short, he agreed, etc. And then we got briefed and we prepared an advertising campaign. The three of us, Jeet Kantawala was the account executive kind of among the three of us, and Das Gupta was the art director, and the three of us prepared this campaign and alternatives, all kinds of stuff. And after a lot of 24/7 kind of work, we went to Delhi and we were introduced to Mrs. Gandhi. Mrs. Gandhi was the information broadcasting minister at that time. And so we made this presentation to her, you know, and she was very impressed. She gave us a very nice, benign smile right through the presentation.
Sure.
But that smile hid something very sinister behind, you know. And so we were surprised. We started looking at each other, Jeet and Das Gupta, myself, and Resume didn't come. Mr. Prem Narayan also didn't come. And then we were in shock. So we kept saying, looking at her, and she said, you know, this is very nice, very good advertisements, etc. But the country doesn't need this. We said, what? She said, do you know any PR? So that's really the first time I heard of PR as a kind of all-important skill, you know.
Sure.
You've heard of PR, etc. And she said, we need PR. She says, so I said, no, I don't know any PR. So I kind of got up to leave. She says, no, you sit down, sit down. And she says, are you willing to learn? So I said, sure. You know, I didn't know what it meant, what it would take, and how would I learn, etc. And she said, I will request one of the top PR persons in the country, a person called Prashanta Sanyal. At that time, Prashanta, he and I became very good friends. There was a big age difference between the two of us. I was probably, 25 at that time, and Prashanta was in his early 50s, you know, and he was working with Union Carbide. So he was brought to Delhi to mentor me into PR skills. So that was my first interaction with PR, you know. And to be honest, Sanju, ever since then, one has used PR with advertising, depending on which would help give us the most cost-effective solution, you know. There was no such thing, this is advertising and this is PR, you know. I remember when we got invited by Mr. Lee Kuan Yew of Singapore to help reposition Singapore. He'd come up with a terrific theme of a city in a park, and he wanted PR. And that's what we did, you know. So but you're right, as a profession, it came to me, as a full-time profession, it came to me much later. Sanju.
Interesting, you know, the message for all of our youth and the parents watching the show, very, very clear now. Mentorship, extremely important, irrespective of the kind of career that you would like to progress with in future, be it something as unassuming as theater or advertising or PR. All right, let's get on to the next part since you're running short of time, Roger. I'm going to have a bit of fun now, okay? I know that you had a flashy life in theater, all right? A very popular advertising career and probably an articulate PR career as well. But let's get on with that fun. I'm going to have a one-question quiz for our audience now. All right, and this quiz is directed directly to all the youth who are attending this program today, particularly for those who are in high school or the 11th or the 12th or senior college or wherever. All right. Before I ask you the question, here are the rules of this game. Very small quiz, just a one-question quiz. If you know the answer to the question that I'm going to be asking you, to all our audience, this is directed to you, this is not directed to Roger. If you know the answer to the question that I'm going to be asking you, please get onto the YouTube chat and give us your answer. The first two correct answers will be the winners and will qualify for a very special prize that will be given to you by Roger a little later. But remember, limit yourself to just the word that I'm asking you to. We don't want a long answer. We just want the profession. And here comes a question for the benefit of all our youth. Get ready with your typing skills, get onto the YouTube chat and give us your answer. The first 2 correct answers will be the winner. Here's the question. If Roger were to relive his life all over again, Roger, this is about you.
Okay.
But directed to our audience, which career do you think Roger would have chosen? All right. I'm not going to give you any clues, but I'm going to generally take you all across. Would it be theater? Would it be advertising? Would it be PR? Would it be a doctor? Would it be an engineer? I don't know. If he had to relive his life, which profession do you think he would have chosen? Now, remember, you got just 3 or 4 minutes to answer. The first 2 correct answers will be the winner. So you can get on to your chat right away and put down the answer. The control team behind the scene will be collating all of these answers together, and they will send me the names of the winner. In the meanwhile, Roger, we can carry on with our discussion, all right? And the next few minutes is all yours. Youth, you've got just 3 or 4 minutes to put in your answers. You can start right away. Control teams are watching. Let's get on, Roger. Advertising, all right, that's been one of your main strengths. Over the years, you've had so much of experience, so much of interaction with different kind of people on advertising. Would you like to share with our viewers this morning a case study about advertising that would help our audience and make it interesting and beneficial for them, please?
Sure, absolutely. You know, there is a wide spectrum of advertising case studies that I'd love to share, but obviously today is not the day and place. But let me choose 1 or 2 very simple and very dramatic. This goes, both of them go way back. The first one was for Prabhat Poultry, the very Bombay, very Mumbai focused product. Mr. Mhatre, who owned Prabhat Poultry, had come over to the office one day at Shilpi and met my boss at that time, Achut Parve. And he explained that, you know, he had come up with this concept of unfertilized eggs, you know, but he was unable to sell them. Now, mind you, people used to derogatorily say, advertising guys, you know, you guys are so glib, you can sell ice to Eskimos, etc., etc. Very much like they say second-hand car sales, you know, and but that's not true. Here they advertise these unfertilized eggs and no one was buying them, you know.
Right.
So I, of course, didn't understand what was unfertilized eggs, you know. So he explained that to us.
I'm still wondering what it is, Roger, but carry on, yeah.
Yeah, so we had the discussion, and then we did some research, etc., etc. And then we came up with a whole campaign, and we were all very excited, you know. It was very simple, very typographical, no photographs, no models, nothing. And the headline was big, bold, now vegetarian eggs. And we explained why we call them vegetarian eggs, because there's never been a life in them, you know, and therefore it's unfertilized, and therefore it's blah, 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 safe for giants, everybody, you know, who would like to try out any non-vegetarian, what was thought to be non-vegetarian, but is now really vegetarian. And immediately I got a call at 10 o'clock that morning. Please stop any further advertising. There are mile-long queues outside Prabhat Poultry. There's one retail outlet at Prabhadevi, you know. They said no more advertising, and I don't think they ever advertise again. Now, this was, mind you, before the National Egg Coordination Committee, which now promotes the consumption of eggs, you know. This was all way back, way then. So it just shows the power of advertising. But you have to understand it. You can't just go on and, you know, advertise it. And if we have time, can I share another example, another case study, you know? And this is a case study of a product called Energy. I don't know how many of you remember it. Again,
the energy drink, right?
Yeah, that's right, you know?
Okay.
Yep. Now, Energy was essentially a milk drink. It was sold in a squat bottle, and for 75 paise a bottle, and Thumbs Up was 1 rupee 25 paise a bottle at that time. I'm going back to the early 80s. 81, 17th March is when we actually launched energy. So this was 1980, 79, 78, etc., etc. But for years and years, they were never able to sell more than 7,000 bottles a day. That's it. Never. Why 7,000? I have no idea. Their capacity was 93,000 bottles a day. And Vasant Patil, who was the chief minister at that time, and he was a very strong guy in the cooperative movement, was very keen to make this a profitable thing so that, he could develop the cooperative movement. But it was a failure. And so they came, I remember Mr. Srinivasan came to my office in the morning. He was the agriculture secretary. And he said, look, we've got this project, this milk drink. We want to sell it like a soft drink. I balked for a moment. How can you sell a milk drink as a soft drink? And he said, it's only 75 paise, The government really subsidizes it, etc., etc. And then we got into asking, what is the capacity, etc., and what are the problems, etc., etc. Did a lot of discussion, did a lot of research, and one of my dear colleagues, Dr. Sri, that he did some fantastic research. And we came to the conclusion, one of the problems was, this was a milk drink. Now, every child hates to be reminded to drink milk. Okay, so that was negative number one. B, it looked like a government product. It looked like a Sarkari product from a ration shop kind of thing.
Right.
3, it was cheaper than soft drinks. So how can you sell it like a soft drink, And good 50 paise cheaper in a price range of 0 to 1 rupee 25 paise,
Absolutely.
So no personality, no name, it wasn't cool for the audience of our youth at that time, and it didn't look like a soft drink. So then we asked, well, would you be willing to change the packaging, etc.? He said, oh, don't tell us all these things. We've given the best advertising agency this task to, and what they've done for 3 years, we don't know. We've spent so many lakhs of rupees a year, and we've not been able to sell more than 7 lakh bottles a day, 7,000 bottles a day. So I said, so anyway, so we said, then we finally convinced them to discard those bottles. We went to Mahalakshmi Glass Works, worked out a bottle that was, now this was double problem because there was milk in it. So there's what's called in-bottle sterilization. So, once the bottle is filled and the cap is put, it has to be sterilized again so that it doesn't contaminate, So it's much more difficult than a Thumbs Up or a Coca-Cola. And the cap would then have to be rust-proof. So a lot of problems. Then the inks on the bottle had to be, should not fade, So all those problems. To cut a long story short, we called it energy. We misspelled the word energy to get it registered because the dictionary word is never registered by the trademarks guys. So we had to misspell it. And cut a long story short, Sanju, within a month of launching energy, we were able to take the full target from 7,000 bottles a day to 93,000 bottles a day every day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So, if you just, like the previous ad agency had just tried to sell government milk, we sold a product. We sold what people wanted, So that is what advertising can do. It can't just sell anything. You can't sell ice to an Eskimo. Sorry, I think
many lessons for the youth listening to you this morning, Raja. I mean, the kind of impact advertising can actually have on lives of people, all right? And you as individuals wanting to choose an advertising career can make an impact on people as well. Very interesting. Before I get on to the next question, Raja, I like to remind our control room, you can stop now taking any more answers. May I request the control room to kindly collate your answers. If you have responses from the youth who have responded to the one question quiz, please send me the results, or rather send me the answers. I'm going to be in the next few moments asking Roger for the right answer, and then we will announce who the winners are. So control room, please stop considering any further answers. Please start collating, pass on the names to me at my control room, and we'll take it on from there. Roger, as the collation happens behind the scene with the control room. Would you want to share with us a case study? The two that you shared with us on advertising were just brilliant. What about PR? Is there some case study that you would like to share with us on PR?
Oh,
please?
yeah, there are plenty in PR too. In fact, it was myriad because suddenly the world of PR, when we started PR, opened out. There was the real, can you imagine a brand like Mercedes being launched wrongly, or a brand like Kellogg's being launched wrongly? So we got opportunity to relaunch both of them successfully. We also launched GE, Apple, Coca-Cola, Visa, Wrigley, a whole range of brands, from all over the world, because suddenly there was liberalization. But I think the most striking one was the launch of Tata Indica cars. We talk about fake news today. In the 80s and 90s, there was a plague of fake news, and it came in black and white in print, and and the way when you read them, you thought it was so when Tata Motors was launching into automobile sector, there were a whole lot of fake news about it, etc. So Mr. Ratan Tata came up with this brilliant concept of Tata Indica. And it was, we positioned it as, actually he positioned it as a car, as roomy as an ambassador, as savvy as a Swift. And mind you, there was no advertising till then. And it was in diesel. And when we announced the price, it was to be as inexpensive as the Maruti 800. Sanju, the day we announced the price, in fact, the day before we announced the price, we had a review with the media. It was headlines on every newspaper in the country. Front page headlines. In fact, newspaper owners would ring me up and, Roger, you've ruined our business. You've deprived us of so much advertising because you got free advertising with your PR campaign, And so we opened bookings, The capacity for the manufacturing was just 60,000 cars per year. We got bookings with full check payments of 1,20,000 precisely. So mind you, the day we announced the price, we had to return 60,000 checks. Can you believe it? And this was pure PR, and overcoming all the negative news. It was a phenomenal success. And so that was on the Tata Indica.
Very interesting, Roger. Really very interesting. By the way, Roger, it's now time to get into the answer for the quiz that we talked about. I've got some very interesting stuff that I want to share with you.
All right.
I'll be very honest with you. I'm completely confused about who the winner is. And I'll tell you why I say this, okay? And this is the feedback that I seem to be getting from my control room. What it seems to be telling me is that on the chat up there, you've got many answers and different kinds of answers. Now I'm completely confused about who the winner is going to be. But it says, some say advertising. All right, I guess they would because they heard so much about advertising from you. Some said theater. Some said army officer. All right, Roger Pereira, probably look like one. Okay. Right, a pilot, PR, Air Force, admin. All right, and now I don't know what admin was meant to be, but one of them seems to say admin, and I'm still getting some other stuff as well coming in out here. But hold on, control room, just hold on. All right, so you've got admin, you've got singer. Wow, I'd like to hear Roger singing as well. Okay, it says politics. Okay. It says politician. And then finally, the control room seems to say, we don't know which is the answer. Let's wait for Roger to say what the answer is. Okay. And we would like Roger to decide which is the closest answer. Otherwise, if there isn't any, please say so, Roger, to say that there is no correct answer. But very quickly, advertising, theater, army officer, pilot, PR, Air Force, admin, singer, politics, politician. All right, these are the answers that have come on. Roger, if you were to relive your life, what would that answer be? What profession?
I'm sorry to disappoint our audience. If I was to relive my life, and mind you, this thought process started in 1965 when I was in Delhi, and I'll explain if we have time at some point, you know, it would be to join the IAS, the civil service, you know, because today the IAS, the civil services or the armed forces, their pay scales are very competitive. So that is no longer a minus point. I would love to do something for the country. I would like to be part of the development. I would like to be part of the policies, you know. I wasn't aware when I was a kid what this meant. But now that I know, and now that I've interacted with so many of them, you know, in 65, I mentioned very briefly, I came across a gentleman who was a collector of Kutch. That was the Ran of Kutch War, if you remember. It was referred to as the Ran of Kutch War.
Right.
And this gentleman was a collector of Kutch at that time. Now, there were no armed forces in Kutch because it was undefended. He got his chowkidar to fire his 303 World War II 303 rifle in the rhythm of an attack gun, you know, to scare the Pakistanis away. And
I see.
That's when I said, wow, now these guys can really make a difference. And that's when my mind started working towards the IAS, the civil services, particularly the IAS, you know. And then since then, I've had an opportunity to work with several people in the IAS, with so many of them when developing the policy for color television for India, when developing the policy for sponsored programs in the government of Maharashtra, the government of Gujarat. And mind you, I finally got to meet that IAS officer. Huh? We became very good friends. The question was, should he get a Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, or Padma Vibhushan? But I won't give the answer on that. That's separate. Okay, so that's when I said I could really do something if I joined the IAS. And if I were to live my life again, sorry, no advertising, no PR, no theater, only the IAS, if they would have me, that is, of course. And sorry, we have no winners, Sanju, so maybe you and I can enjoy the prize ourselves.
Absolutely. I don't know what the prize is, Roger, but if you're taking me on for lunch or dinner to the Taj, I'm happy. We'll get on there together. Absolutely.
Well, the prize was to take whoever was the winner to the chambers for lunch or dinner. So now it's you and I.
I'm on.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Maybe we'll take the whole crew, Vernon and Ian and Aubrey. Okay, all together. We'll have a ball. Okay, so
absolutely.
Better than I would explain it is Anthony D'Souza, who came to me with the idea first of let's take charge, focus on the civil services and armed forces. And we have a video message of Anthony. Can we play that, Ian, please?
Sure.
Why do we need our brightest and our best young men and women to be part of government, the civil services and the armed forces? Because these two wings of the government are the backbone, the steel structure which holds the country together. In any developing country, in any developed country, the civil services plays a huge role in development and ensuring an orderly and structured development of the country. It's very important for our young people today to opt for a career in the civil services and the armed forces. It's important because most of our young people today aspire for careers other than these two careers. And therefore, it should be our objective to ensure that we motivate, we talk to young people, we encourage them, we make all information available to them so that they are in a position to take an informed decision before joining or before aspiring for a career in the civil services or the armed forces. After independence leading up to 1980, our brightest young people went into the civil services and the armed forces, and they played a big role in the development of India. Since then, however, it has been observed that the young boys and girls are spoiled for choices. They have many more options before them, and therefore the civil services and armed forces are low on the list of priorities as far as the career is concerned. We therefore, the Take Charge program, have taken this as a challenge to make sure that we get our brightest and the best to consider an option to aspire for a career in the civil services and the armed forces. No country, developing or developed, can aspire to greatness unless it has the best people in government, the best people managing the most vital sectors of the country. In the Take Charge program, we identify young people, we talk to them, we mentor them, we put them in touch with civil servants and police officers and armed forces senior officials, who then talk to them about their career choice, career option, about what they could or what they should not do if they wish to get into the civil services and the armed forces. Today, the salaries in the civil services and the armed forces is very good. It's excellent. It's pensionable. There's a chance to go abroad. There's a chance to get trained at some of the best institutions in the world, and it's a great chance to be a part of the progress and development of India. That's what we want our young people to do. The Take Charge program wishes that all the young people in Bombay, of all communities, should consider the civil services and the armed forces as a very viable, challenging, and excellent option to work for the country, to work for development, to make sure that policy planning, implementation, and social development are ensured.
Now, Anthony, mind you, grew up in Ajmer. He's a banker, but he was the chief executive of an international bank. And a lot of the people he grew up with have taken up the civil services, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force. Now let's take each service separately. Let's begin with the IAS and let's hear from my friend, Michael Pinto. Let's hear that video.
The Indian Administrative Service, or the IAS, was not my first job. When I was selected for the IAS, I was already working as a management trainee with what was then called Hindustan Lever and is now Unilever. My first task was to decide which job to opt for. The choice involved balancing Hindustan Lever's promises of postings in big cities, remunerative salaries, and other creature comforts with an IAS dispensation that meant living in places where there was no electricity, no toilets, and none of the food I was accustomed to. In spite of this, I chose the IAS, and I have never regretted it. Actually, this is not so surprising. In the private sector, where will you get a chance to touch the lives of so many people, to bring openness and transparency to public systems, and to make such a difference to society at large? The satisfaction I got from passing an order in favor of a poor widow, of making the public distribution system more transparent, and helping to execute large national projects with speed and efficiency was far greater than what I would have got from selling more soap. More money, good housing, and a comfortable lifestyle only go so far. Ultimately, you must live with yourself.
Today, of course, the money is also a lot, and the salaries
Absolutely.
are priced.
Right.
And so that's the administrative service. Now let's hear, mind you, he was also the chief CEO of the JNPT and several other important national positions. Let's hear from our top cop, Julio Ribeiro now.
Every year, the Government of India holds the All India Civil Services Examination to recruit senior officers to what we may call its management cadre. The recruitment is to the Administrative Service, IAS, the Indian Foreign Service, the IFS, the Indian Police Service, the IPS, and other class services like the Audit and Accounts, Railways, Income Tax, Customs, etc. I appeared for this examination in 1952 and was selected for the Indian Police Service, which I joined in 1953 in the rank of Assistant Superintendent of Police, equivalent to the Assistant Commissioner of Police in Mumbai City. If anyone aspires to head the bureaucracy in the state or in the center, or if you are in the police service, if you intend to head the state police, he or she has to appear for this competitive examination. Government service gives you the greatest opportunity to serve the people. As the name suggests, you are competing for a service, which means you are going to serve the people of your state and your country. The police service in particular gives you the greatest satisfaction to do good to the poor and the powerless by meting out justice at the very initial stage of the judicial process system. The greatest Christian virtue preached by Jesus is love and compassion for all through service. I would recommend very strongly that young Catholic men and women compete in the All India Services exam to qualify for these services.
What a powerful message. What a powerful message.
Absolutely. Each time I hear Julio Ribeiro, I get goosebumps. I must admit, Roger.
Yeah.
I met him very, very many years ago. Thereafter, at a couple of other occasions as well. But hearing the man and just hearing, learning about his life gives me goosebumps.
And he's done it for people, you know. I remember meeting him during the police revolution and in Mumbai. I met with several cops, and you know, they would tell me, "Sab, aapko Julio sab pehchante hai kya?"
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine, yeah.
Now, let's look at the third branch, which is the revenue service. And let's hear from Arvind Pinto, if we can hear that video and see that.
Sure. Oh, you get that up.
If I look back at my career in the civil services, I was an accidental entrant into the Indian Revenue Service, where I continued serving for 34 long years and finally retiring as the Chief Commissioner, Income Tax. As a young person like many of you, I was not sure as to what I would become. Being what was then Bombay, I did not have much idea of government service. And in my family, being a government servant was something that was only for average students aspiring to be. Therefore, having graduated from St. Xavier's College in Sociology, I decided to search for a job. Jobs were scarce to come by in those days. And wherever I applied, I came to be rejected as either underqualified or overqualified. Like most Indian youth, not having secured any gainful employment after graduation, I sought to study further, and this is when my destiny changed. I was selected for a master's degree in the School of Social Sciences at Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. While studying for my master's at the said university, I found that several of my friends were serious at study, and I was intrigued as to why they were reading books unrelated to the subjects we were studying. It was then that I first heard of the Indian civil services. Like many of them, I decided that I would also take on what was known as the Great Indian Gamble, the civil services exam. I took the 75 exam and was selected for the Indian Revenue Service in 1976. I knew nothing about income tax since I didn't pay any at that time. After an initial foundational course at Mussoorie, we were trained in the nuances of tax at the National Academy of Direct Taxes at Nagpur. As you know, the Income Tax Department collects revenue for the government for the various socio-economic projects as also for the security of this country. Starting my career as a young assistant commissioner in Bombay, I moved up the hierarchy and served in different parts of this country. Government service gives you both a challenge as well as a change. One of my experiential postings was as the Director for Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes, Maharashtra, where I gained immense knowledge of the rural poverty and the hierarchical system of caste in this country. On the other hand, on the glamour front, I was fortunate to be sent to study in Paris to study French international law at the Sorbonne, a knowledge that unfortunately I didn't have any occasion to make use of. Yes, I know that in today's world, there are several opportunities for you bright and ambitious students in India today. But government service, despite its many failings, still has charm for those looking for challenges in their life. And for those looking for a post-retirement position, you can take my own example. I am today an advocate at the Bombay High Court, being the senior standing counsel for the Income Tax Department, where I deal with the tax cases of the Revenue Service. When I joined the civil services in the 70s, there were several Christians at the top rung of my service, even here in Mumbai. There were 5 Catholic commissioners, and when I retired, the number of Christians were few. Today, there are not many Christian entrants into the civil services. We require our young people in the service of this country. Today, when our country is undergoing challenges on several fronts, developmental, fiscal, political, religious and communal, the nation requires people of integrity and capability like you to manage civil services. You can be one of them. Yes, India needs you now.
What a powerful message from Arvind.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
Roger, before you move on to your next video, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Civil services is quite a wide term, all right? And we all know, some of us, or probably a lot of us would probably know, that it includes IAS, it includes IPS, it includes IRS. What else? Can you tell us, or at least give our audience a kind of an overview of what are the various umbrellas, or what are the various aspects, or for that matter, the various parts within civil services that people can aspire for?
Sure. Julia mentioned some of them, and Arvind did also. There's the foreign service, where your foreign secretaries are usually groomed from. There's a railway service. There's a postal service, depending on how one fares at the UPSC exam, including the interview, So there's a wide range of services that you can, the government services, central services, then you get posted. You can opt for any particular state that you need, or you and then that's your career. But Arvind brought out a very important point, and that is the foreign education it provides. He went to the Sorbonne. I know many civil service guys who have been seconded to Harvard. And when I used to teach at the East-West Center in Hawaii, there were many Maharashtra government and Andhra Pradesh government and Chennai government IAS officers who used to be in the class over there. So they are sent abroad for study, for scholarship, a whole lot of opportunities. And most important, as I mentioned earlier, today the pay scales are very competitive. So it's better than a lot of the commercial offers that you could get, So
sure.
Let's look at the other range now, and that is the armed forces. But before I forget, there are the state services also. And we have these websites that Aubrey will put up on the screen, which are for the various civil services and the armed forces, and also for the state civil services. Each state has its own cadre of civil services. And whatever questions we can't answer, Sanju, we'll have a St. Joseph Trust email ID that they can get information from in case we are running out of time. So let's look at armed forces. Shall we, Sanju?
Sure, of course.
Let's look at the army to begin with.
Right.
Colonel Sunit Cardozo.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we've all been through the stages in life where we've been confused as to what career we need to take. I've had the advantage. I am a second generation army officer. I knew what I wanted. Uniform attracted me. I wanted excitement in life. I did not want a 9-to-5 job. I wanted to see places. I wanted a mix of physical activities. Camaraderie mattered a lot, and an apolitical organization. To start with, uniform. Our uniform is worn with pride and honor, and the ribbons on my chest do all the talking. I've had 6 tenures in J&K, served in high altitude, deserts, the Siachen Glacier, United Nations peacekeeping missions, and lived at altitudes ranging between 19 to 20,000 feet. That's the height at which aircraft fly, at temperatures ranging between -30 to -60 degrees. I've been places where very few of you will ever have an opportunity to see. Experiences no other job or work profile can provide. We do things that others cannot do. I stress on the word we. We means we. We function as a team. Rank is for life. Even when you retire, you use your rank with your name. It's the President's Commission, and we are proud of it. Excitement is for life. It's a challenge. In every walk of life, you face the most trying, challenging situations, testing your mettle, and the most important thing is everyone looks up at you for help. The responsibility is heavy. Serving in counterinsurgency situations is a big challenge. We use latest technology, equipment. One has to be ahead of the adversary in every field. It separates the boys from the men, with no disrespect to other professions. Be it earthquakes, floods, natural disasters, the armed forces are the nation's last hope, and we have never failed. The calling is 24/7, anywhere in the country or abroad. Risk is a part of life. One learns to live with it every moment of your life and every day, every moment. That's excitement. Opportunities, driving tanks, firing guns, missiles, parajumps, free fall, slithering, mountaineering, scuba diving are all opportunities at your doorstep. Team effort always, never alone. Someone is always watching my back, just as I am watching someone else's. Trust, faith, camaraderie. Life in the academy is a priceless experience. The most important thing, the armed forces are apolitical. At the young age of 21, you are responsible for the lives of others. Not money, no turnover. We deal with lives, our own and the enemy. For those who want to milk extra from life, we have the paracommandos. They are the masters of survival. Not seen, not heard. They move in and out silently. They pack in a punch. Well trained in the use of special weapons, be it sea, land or air. Camaraderie, as I said, is our greatest strength. We eat together, we live together, play together, fight together. That means everything to us. If you feel you're ready for this, don't waste time. Thank you.
Colonel Sunit is now retired, and as he mentioned, he's a second-generation Army officer.
Sure.
His father is the legendary General Ian Cardozo, whose leg was ambushed during the 71 war in
Absolutely.
Bangladesh. And the story, if you don't mind, can I repeat it here for the benefit of our audience, Sanju?
Sure, yeah. We'll give the audience goosebumps, I can tell you, when you tell them the story.
He lost his leg in an ambush, and his leg was blown up. And instead of being admitted into a hospital, he asked he was head of the Gurkha regiment. He asked them to cut his leg off so that he could continue. And the Gurkha said, no, sir, we cannot do it. And so he grabbed the kukri from one of them and cut his own leg, told them to bury it, and now let's continue marching. And what a story. What a story. It gives me goosebumps as I repeated it just now. And love to hear him one day. Let's get him at the Catholic Gymkhana, And he's the only officer who was disabled. Mind you, he has a Jaipur foot. And he's the only disabled officer who was allowed to continue command a regiment, So a rare honor, and he richly deserved it. Let's go on to the Navy now. And as I mentioned, Colonel Sunit is now retired. And we now have a retired Commodore Ml Joshi. Let's hear it from him.
I am Commodore Ml Joshi. I served the Navy for 27.5 years. And after that, I switched over to the corporate sector in senior management positions where I worked for 16 long years. So I've seen life on either side of the fence. And given the choice today, I would still join the Navy. Besides the nobler intentions of serving your country, you get to see a significant part of India and many parts of the world, and work in an environment using the latest technology. The Navy offers a great challenge. It operates in the air, on the surface, and even underwater, all with the latest fighters and reconnaissance aircrafts and helicopters, ships and submarines, giving you an ample opportunity to learn and master the newest technology on offer in the world today. The surface fleet comprises modern warships built with the latest technology. We even have a latest aircraft carrier with us. They work with speed and efficiency. The weapons such as missiles, torpedoes, rockets, and anti-aircraft guns are all remote controlled. It's needless to say that digital technology drives them, and many engine rooms are unmanned machinery spaces. The naval aircraft and helicopters operate from the aircraft carrier as well as from shore bases, and most ships have a helicopter today, while maritime reconnaissance aircraft operate from the shore. The submarines, including nuclear submarines, have maximum sophistication. The canvas for you, therefore, to choose from is very vast indeed. And the Navy has excellent colleges and training schools to ensure that you can master these devices. If you are hardworking, you have a great opportunity to rise and become an admiral. I would like to talk a little bit about the lifestyle in the Navy. In my naval career, I played a great variety of games. And even today, I am the secretary of tennis at the Bandra Gymkhana because I learned to play the game while I was in the Navy. I still play a game of golf, a good game of golf at the Services Club. With my family, I lived in the choicest places in cities with excellent club and sports facilities at a stone's throw. In the Navy, you live with dignity, with respect from both subordinates and superiors. The friendship and camaraderie for myself and my family are lifelong treasures. My family got the best medical treatment with the latest equipped naval hospitals. The security of the job is another important aspect, and the pensions are more than adequate to live a life of comfort thereafter. Put the overall package together for a naval officer, and it compares well with the best private sector jobs. But what stands out is the challenges, the career openings, and the lifestyle, which are incomparable. Even today, I enjoy vacations with my colleagues from the Navy. We never fail to meet up in various parts of the country. I don't denigrate life in the private sector, but I make a strong case for choosing a naval career because of the lifestyle and the opportunities for hard-working boys, and I include girls.
Yeah, that's great. Commodore Ml is a great tennis player even today. We have one more from the Armed Forces, Sanju, that's okay. And that is from Air Vice Marshal, now retired, Mike Fernandez. Let's hear it.
Yep, let's go on. Yeah.
Hello, Gen Next, all you young teenagers entering their 12th or their graduation. I'm Air Vice Marshal Michael Fernandez of the Indian Air Force. I'm a fighter pilot by profession, and I'm here to share with you all 2 secrets of my life. The first one is how to be a hero. Who is a hero? A hero is someone who has done something courageous or has imbibed abilities to do something that is beyond the call of duty. To be able to do such a thing, there is one organization that gives you every opportunity, and that is the Indian Armed Forces. The Indian Armed Forces is a brilliant place to be in. You live a life of a hero. It's not a real hero, it's a real hero. You are actually living up to the expectations and the aspirations that so many of your citizens of this country have placed in you. That is my first secret. You want to be a hero? Join the Armed Forces of India. My second secret. How do you not work for a single day in your life? Ask me. I've never worked a single day in my life. The challenges that the Armed Forces gives you makes it worthwhile to get up every day in the morning and run to work. It's a brilliant place to be in. Never have I had to drag myself to work. I've got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to do an ORP duty, which is an operational readiness platform, in which you man live aircraft fully loaded, just in case somebody tries something stupid from across the border. And yet, even at 3 o'clock, I never ever turned my alarm off saying, let me sleep for 5 more minutes. I've never worked a day in my life. The passion that the Armed Forces affords you is unbelievable. Take it up. These are the 2 secrets that I have learnt by living these 36 years of my life in the Armed Forces. But actually, those are white lies. It would be incomplete if I was to tell you it was only a dream. The Armed Forces is a difficult lifestyle. It calls upon you to sacrifice a lot. It calls upon you for your family to sacrifice a lot. And when you are called for that ultimate sacrifice that you may have to do, you should have no second thoughts about it. So I think I've given you a very complete picture of what the armed forces has to offer you. But believe me, if I was to live and be born again, I would have lived my life exactly the way I have lived this one. It's easy if you are passionate about joining this. Just get onto the web, find out careers in the Indian Armed Forces, and you'll find a plethora of information from which you can know exactly what you are supposed to do. Start today. When you are my age, at 58 years, you look back and say, I want to thank Air Vice Marshal Fernandez for this brilliant life that he advised me to take up. Thank you. Bye.
Superb. Good thing I didn't meet him earlier in life. He would have made me very jealous, because that's what I wanted to be.
Absolutely.
I wanted to be a fighter pilot.
Sure.
But today times are different, as we said. The salaries are far better, very competitive, and huge pensions, which we don't get in the private sector.
Right.
We have one more video if we have time to share it, Sanju.
Sure. Yep.
And this is from His Eminence as a special message. Mind you, this was recorded on Independence Day, 15th of August. Just bear that in mind. And this is the message from His Eminence, Oswald Cardinal Gracious.
Sure.
Good evening. I'm speaking to you on Independence Day, and so I'm full of love for the country today. I feel it very strongly, and I reflect on to see what we could do more, what our community can do more, communities can do more for the country, and so much we can do. But I thought one thing that we should really concentrate on, I'm talking to the adults, can we start encouraging our people, our youngsters, to get into the civil services, get into the armed forces to help our country. I regret that at one stage there were so many from different communities. And I don't feel many from our community in the city of Mumbai are really not finding it very attractive. I mean, that surprises me. And I want to speak about the priesthood also, sacred orders also. I think that's another way also for to serve the country. You can serve the country very much by being in a position of leadership. Really, there is so much that we've got to do for our country, to give values, to bring ethics, to give good governance, and we can do it in different ways. The media is doing it in their way, and those of us who are in religious life are doing it in our way. But some people can get right into the heart of it, and be people who make decisions that matter, make decisions that make a difference in people's lives. So I strongly encourage you to join this. I know there's a program, we've been working on that. I congratulate Roger Pereira and all his colleagues who are working on this. All success to them, and I give you, Roger, my 100% backing. God bless you.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Yes, Sanjay.
Stunning. In fact, Roger, I must admit, it was so good to note that even His Eminence urges every one of us within the community and outside, all right, to get into being a part of nation building. That is what it is all about, all right. Irrespective, whichever community, all of us putting our hands together and ensuring that India gets its rightful place across the world, all right. All of us to be a part of this beautiful nation building process. Thank you so much, Roger. That was an amazingly inspiring session. Spiced up, I must admit, with tidbits from various subject matter experts with renowned reputation. Ladies and gentlemen, we could not have asked for more in a short session like this. The session has provided much needed direction to our youth to help them accelerate on the path of success. And before we take the question answers from the audience, I have a very special announcement. Our 6th virtual live talk show under the Knowledge Worth Having series will be held on Sunday, the 17th of October, 2021 at our normal 11 a.m. Indian Standard Time, only on the Catholic Gymkhana YouTube channel. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Hence, we have Dr. Ms. Ismat Kabula, who's particularly committed to promoting awareness of breast cancer. In the words of Dr. Kabula, 1 in 29 women will get breast cancer in their lifetime. 1 in 29 women will get breast cancer in their lifetime. Dr. Kabula will be talking about how to identify early signs of breast cancer and discuss what proactive steps you can take to tackle this issue if it arises. We strongly recommend that all adult women, along with your spouse and parents, should attend the session. It can certainly save many lives. This session is not only for women, but for your male partners as well, who are also encouraged to attend so that they can have some source of help and assistance if required. So be there on Sunday, the 17th of October, 2021 at 11 a.m. sharp Indian Standard Time on our very own Catholic Gymkhana YouTube channel. Rather, it is now time to take questions from the audience. We have really just 2 questions and 1 comment. So I'm going to club the comment and the question together. All right. And this is what it says. Are the civil or government services currently at the whims and fancies of politicians? And how do we tackle such a situation, knowing our current situation? All right. And there's a comment which comes with it as well. It's more a sentiment. Corruption and bowing down to politicians and others is the biggest deterrent for youngsters to join the civil services. More of a comment, but I can roll that up with the other questions. All right, the first question that I just posed on. Roger?
There is, let's face it, there always has been, and for a long, long time, there has been some interference by politicians. A lot of it has come into the media attention recently. But there can always be said that there always has still been a Julio Ribeiro. There's always been a Michael Pinto. There's always been an Arvind Pinto. And I could go on and on. A Sharad Upasni, a Venkachari. I could go on and continue mentioning an H.R. Patankar, and an Anil Shah. And, there have been. And these guys have stood fast and stood firmly and stood for their principles and their commitment to the Constitution. And no matter what, there will be pressures. Let's face it, we talked about godfathers, when we were talking about mentors. And a lot of politicians see themselves as godfathers. So they'd love to get their word in, and get their word. But it all depends on what character of steel you have. And you're able to stand up to that, the kind of pressure, and able to go ahead and win. And make a difference, in life.
Sure. In fact, just 2 comments to add to what you said, Roger. Air Vice Marshal, I think Fernandez said, the armed forces is apolitical. All right, there's a message there for us. Okay, we cannot necessarily conclude that every part of the civil services is exposed to political pressure. We can't really conclude that. And if we talk of our own lives, I've been in the corporate world, all right? You've been in the corporate world as well.
Absolutely.
Each of us have had bosses, all right? And in that very same sense, each of us could be under pressures of succumbing to something that your boss would say.
Absolutely.
All right. So those challenges would always come up. And the question is, how will you conduct ourselves? And you so aptly described that, Roger. Thank you so much for that lovely answer.
Sanju, you're so right. It's not only there in the bureaucracy, the service of the armed forces, but it's there in our commercial life too. So if if you're going to face it in commercial life, you might as well face it there,
Absolutely.
And you hold on. The important thing is to have your value system intact.
Absolutely. as long as you're above the line, all right,
That's
and
right.
your integrity levels are unquestionable, all right, you can really stand that up, and that would differentiate the boys from the men.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, the second and the last question, Roger. Can chartered accountants, psychologists, doctors, engineers, and the rest of the professions also join the armed forces?
Yes, of course. There are separate. Yesterday, we awarded an engineer who has joined the army, and we gave him a special scholarship. He joined the engineering corps. So there are separate segments because the armed forces have doctors, as Ml Joshi mentioned. They get treated at the best medical naval hospitals because that's armed by doctors who are in the Navy. Who have joined the Navy in those categories. So yes, there's room for psychologists, there's room for everybody, there's room for educationists also. I knew of a squadron leader who was actually a B.Ed. He used to teach me. He was at the government law college and then decided to join the Air Force, So there are all kinds of branches, and look up the websites that Aubrey will share on the screen, and they'll give you the plethora of opportunities that are available.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Roger. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for a well-deserved vote of thanks. I must say, before I proceed, India recently lost one of its prominent athletes. Milkha Singh was commonly and lovingly called the Flying Sikh. Within CG, we have someone who's today getting popularly known as not the Flying Sikh, but as the Flying Ian. For those of you who may not know, Ian Pereira is a managing committee member who is increasingly getting popular as Flying Ian. The speed at which Ian takes on projects and delivers it to its logical end has earned him the name Flying Ian. In addition to being a managing committee member, Ian, who will now propose a vote of thanks, is also a part of the technical team, bringing the show live to you along with Aubrey Chatelier. Ian also happens to be the secretary of the PR committee, who along with chairperson Mrs. Yvette Malgi, brings to you all the promotional material for our events, our Saturday night events, our Sunday events, and the newsletter as well. It's my pleasure now to call upon Mr. Ian Pereira to propose a vote of thanks. Ian, please.
Hi, Sanju. Thanks for that wonderful thing. I'm flying, but I hope I don't fly too high, if you know what I mean.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Roger. Very brilliant, very informative. The videos were excellent, and I'm sure you must have inspired a lot of people to join the armed forces. And as you say, there's room for CAs, engineers, psychologists, psychiatrists. So that could also be another avenue. You could qualify in some other field and then join the armed forces, the other way around. So thanks, Roger. I'm sure we could have had a 4-hour show, and you would still be giving us nuggets of your wonderful life. Now that you're a legend in communication and PR, I hope that if there's a next life, that you can actually join the IAS. Now back to Sanju, a wonderful talk show host who, improves every month. But it's not easy. I know how much work he puts in. We all know how much work he puts in behind the scenes, and a lot of planning and decision making and dry runs to get this done. And Sanju, of course, is a wonderful compere and talk show host in real life as well. And besides this training company he owns. And Aubrey, sitting in Pune, unfortunately, he couldn't get any right answers today, but he found some nice questions and passed them on to Nirmala and Chriselle, that's Sanju's wife and daughter. Thanks, all three of you, for your cooperation in making this show a success. And of course, we have to get our audience, and we have a communication cell headed by Yvette Malgi, and thanks to her and the team, we have got the audience today. Now, very sincere thanks on behalf of Catholic Gymkhana to Father Nigel Barrett for the wonderful videos. I know Father Nigel personally. Besides being parish priest of Rosary Church, he's the director of the Catholic Communication Center, and he's got his hands full with the daily mass of the Cardinal and other stuff. But he's really given us some good videos of these gentlemen, and really good videos and really good quality videos. So thank you, Father Nigel. And thanks to all of you, and thanks Roger once again for spending this Sunday afternoon with us. Back to Sanju.
Thank you, Ian. In fact, I was almost tempted to say thank you, Flying Ian. All right, I'll stay with Ian Pereira for now. Great job as always. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to remind you the 17th of October 2021 at 11 a.m. sharp for the 6th talk show. And we'd like to also remind you of our Saturday night programs, every Saturday, 9 p.m. sharp, members night with a live band. Before we end, I'd like to leave you with a thought. And this thought would go especially for our youth. To our youth, dream the impossible dream. Look beyond the obvious boundaries. For when that dream becomes a reality, success will embrace you in reality. Good luck. Best wishes for a sensational career. With that, ladies and gentlemen, this is your friend and compere, Sanju Fernandez, signing off. Thank you. Goodbye. Good afternoon, and stay safe.